We're also continuing to follow another developing story that's impacting every airport in the nation, including Southwest Florida International Airport. You're actually getting a live look of the boards. You see all of those times that say now a new time. These are delayed flights. This all because of a failure in the FAA computer system that caused a nationwide outage, ground stopping all domestic flights today with at least 8,000 delays across the nation. So Fox 4 anchor Shari Armstrong leading off our comprehensive team coverage tonight on the impacts and explaining how this even could happen live at RSW. And Shari, this did impact passengers and flights there today. We're seeing it right here on the board.
Nadine, it is still impacting passengers and flights here in Southwest Florida. We have been talking to people here throughout the day who tell us they've been waiting hours to either leave or they waited hours to arrive here. So we are still seeing the impacts, even though that pause happened this morning. At last check on FlightAware, 113 flights were delayed, 4 were canceled. I want to give you a look at the big board right now just to see what we're dealing with here. So as you can see, as we look at departures, you see that now at time flashing next to so many of these flights, indicating a delay, a change in the original time that that flight was scheduled for. And this is something, as we talked to, we've heard so many people mention that it's been impacting their travel. Now, the FAA is calling this a mechanical issue that forced them to ground all flights across the country this morning. This is historical. We haven't seen this since 9/11. So you might be asking, why did the pause get issued? Well, pilots use a system called NOTAM. It stands for Notice to Air Missions. It's a system that hands out essential information that they need about flight operations up to the latest minute so that they have a smooth trip and they're aware of what's going on in airspace. Now, NOTAM notifies pilots of things like runway closures or radio air traffic control stations being out of service or things like construction cranes being in the way. So that is why Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg says those systems are so essential.
Where overnight there was an issue with irregularities in the messages that were going out that reflected a bigger systems issue. And this morning, as of about 7 o'clock, there were still problems validating that the messages were going out. So for safety reasons, to make sure that every aircraft that took off was doing so safely, FAA implemented a ground stop lasting about an hour and a half from about 7:30 to 9.
So Southwest Florida, Nadine, I was on Twitter earlier today and I saw some of the things that were trending. One of them was hashtag cyber attack. People chiming in asking if this was a cyber attack. So I want to share this with you as Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg says there's no direct evidence of that, but quote, we are also not going to rule that out until we have a clear and better understanding of what's taken place. I wanted to give you that direct quote as this is a developing situation. Now, I mentioned that we've been talking to people here at Southwest Florida International Airport, RSW, and this is a team effort. Fox 4's Elise Chingari has actually been here all day. I'm just joining her at the end of the day, but you've been talking to people and they've been experiencing challenges with what's been going on today.
Exactly. I know as soon as you got here, Shari, you're like, Elise, what are people saying?
Yes.
And what they're saying is basically all of them are affected by this since this morning. We can see throughout the airport, people are coming and going, but basically, I mean, from the shortest delay of 40 minutes all the way up to 4 hours, some people's flights are just completely canceled. So you can imagine that's created quite a bit of a confusion here at RSW, and we're still seeing that on the boards here today. Now, another thing, when I've been talking to travelers here today, some of their concerns that they're facing, a lot of them don't have direct flights, so they're having to make that connection. Now, their concern is if they had a delay here, or maybe they didn't have so much of a delay when they get to their next airport, they're wondering if that's going to be canceled and what they're going to be facing when they get to that next airport.
It's put me in a little tensy because I'm dealing with school and wanted to get to Denver so that he could get on his school class without missing anything. And right now, my flight from Fort Myers to Atlanta is on time, but my flight from Atlanta to Denver is delayed. No idea what's going to happen. I'm afraid I'll be staying the night in Atlanta.
As of right now, we've not seen an update from RSW since they posted at 9 a.m. this morning, reiterating flights were resuming nationwide, telling passengers they need to check with their airline for the most up-to-date information concerning flights here at RSW. Now, that brings up an important topic. If you are planning on traveling, either tonight or early tomorrow, make sure you check online to make sure your flight's not delayed. And when we're talking about what people are experiencing, a gentleman just came up to me, Dave. He was flying in and he said this is what his day has looked like. He has waited more than 4.5 hours to get back here to Southwest Florida. He's a Michigan native, but he's like, hey, I see the news is here. Make sure you try to include this so people understand what we are facing. Again, people really need to check their times if they're flying out or into Southwest Florida. And Shari, I know FlightAware is still tracking the delays and cancellations.
That's right. I mean, FlightAware last check says more than 8,000 flights have been delayed across the country. Again, we're talking to so many people here at Southwest Florida International Airport, but this is something that has impacted people across the United States. And tonight, our Isabella Rosales is showing you just how.
Flights once again in the air after the system the FAA uses to provide pilots with pre-flight safety notices failed overnight, causing the agency to institute a nationwide ground stop briefly Wednesday morning. More than 8,000 flights within, into, or out of the U.S. delayed as of Wednesday afternoon, and more than 1,000 were canceled. The order was lifted shortly before 9 a.m. Wednesday, once the system was restored, but not before wreaking havoc on travelers' itineraries.
It's supposed to be like 11 or 12 when we landed. Now it's going to be 2, and we're missing the first week for a funeral.
Department of Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg says the notice-to-air mission system is critical.
This is a standardized, uniform way for getting important safety messages out to airports, aircraft, and airlines. For example, if a runway is closed or maybe a navigation beacon is out, something that a pilot would need to know for safety reasons. Very important, of course, for that information to be flowing efficiently.
Though failures have been rare, Buttigieg says the Department of Transportation is launching an investigation into the system's possible vulnerabilities.
That broader question is a real one. What are the redundancies? What are the backups? What are the means to make sure that a disruption like this does not happen?
For those flying Wednesday, officials say delays are likely to continue throughout the day as airlines work to recover from the backlog. In Washington, I'm Isabel Rosales.